can use either or. I'm not sure. Was it very hot or no?
No, it was over.
Okay, so we can put it in
Video?
Okay, cool.
You're married, so doesn't matter. No one's watching. Christ is watching.
Do you want to do the wines too or no?
Yeah,
Right,
how are we doing the wines? But right there?
I'll do it after.
Oh, after, okay.
Okay, sorry. I'm struggling.
What?
It's like, where am I standing?
You want to put the music on or?
You need some little ambiance? You want a little ambiance?
My tunes, man.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we got Quab here doing his tea ceremony. Alright, Quab, so tell us what we got going on.
We got some elderberry tea.
Okay, bust that open. Let's see.
Elderberry mixed with some borage and some honey.
Okay, nice. Alright. Let me get a whiff of that. Let's see what we have there. The herb house. Okay, that's the logo. Okay. So what do we got here? Barrage, you said?
Yeah, borage and elderberry and a bit of honey.
Okay, and a bit of honey.
Yep.
Yeah, I taste a little bit of sweetness in there.
Yep. Anybody else do this one? Want to taste some more?
So what are the benefits of barrage?
Borage, I personally use it for the heart. So if you are emotionally drained, energetically, if you feel just stressed out due to a lot of stuff going on in your life, borage can definitely help your nervous system. It helps you to sleep, and it's very calming and grounding.
We got Karima. You're missing out on
Yes.
some delicious tea here.
Looks good.
Would you like more?
So I need a penny roll that for you.
Yep.
Say hi to Karima.
Hi, Karima.
I feel so healthy.
Okay.
Let me get them. And so did you forage this or is
The
this
borage I grew, the elderberry I didn't grow.
is this a barrage?
Oh, great.
Whoa. You're good. No, this is valerian. This is a completely different plant.
Oh, valerian root.
Yeah.
Is that red or blue? Red.
That's should be purple.
Purple?
Yeah.
All right.
That's
Well, next. Are you gonna do a cold brew? You have a cold tea, or you're not gonna do cold tea? No. Okay. All right. So next, we're gonna do some wine. So, I've been making alcohol for a long time, and I've never made wine. So I decided last summer that I was like, let me just make 90 bottles of wine. And I found this Portuguese winery, and they let you select your own grapes, and you can kind of pick your own flavors and make your own wine. And I was like, oh, well, why spend $500 or whatever at bars drinking drinks that you don't even like when you could have 90 bottles of your own wine? So I made 3 kinds of wine. This is a Spanish trio. So this is a Tempranillo, a Syrah, and a Cabernet. I called it the Fiery Salsa. So this one you're gonna taste, it's gonna be a little bit spicier. What I love about red wines, especially like Canadian, very bold, very rich, a lot of good flavors. So when I made this, one thing that you'll taste is I didn't choose any wines that are gonna be like smoky. I find some wines like they like to do very like oaky Chardonnays, or they'll do like a Baco Noir, which is really smoky and spicy. This is kind of a balance. So every wine that I made, I tried to make it very neutral and balanced. So it's not going to be too sour. It's not going to be too sweet. It's kind of just like in the middle. Because I didn't ferment these in oak or wood barrels, I did it in a glass container. So usually wine, they'll usually put it in a silver, like in a steel kind of barrel when they ferment it, which will give it kind of like a metallic taste, which I personally don't like. And then if you use oak or wood barrels, usually gets that flavor of like kind of smoky French oak. But because these are from glass, you're just getting straight grapes. So you're just getting really straight up grapes, which I think that's what wine should just be, grapes and nothing else. Does anybody know how to taste the wine? Has anyone ever done a wine
Down the
tasting?
street for us.
Okay, we got it. Kristen, do you want to try it? Show us the technique.
I'm not a professional, but this is what I see on Food Network.
Yeah, just tell me, try what you know.
So you're gonna swish it around. I'm not gonna do like what sommeliers do and like gargle it. I'm not gonna do that. But you swish it around.
Okay, what are you looking for when you turn the glass?
How, I don't know what the right word is.
Tannins.
How
Isn't
it
it
comes down the
legs?
side of.
Don't they call it
Tannins.
legs?
You
I
can
think
say
legs
that.
is another.
Oh.
But the proper, like the
Yes.
actual term is tannins.
So you can see them coming down the side of the glass.
So when you stir it around, so the
Show
more
us.
tannins are in the wine, the more
Wow,
antioxidant they are.
Yeah.
So the thing in grapes that make you youthful or younger is actually the tannins. So you get the nice smell, so it doesn't smell like nail polish.
Nope.
So usually when you go to a restaurant, they make you smell it or try it. It's to make sure that the wine's not bad, because sometimes if the corks come out of your wine, then it can be rotten. So it's good. Typically, because this is a red wine, I should give it to you in a wider glass so that the aromatic can kind of flow out.
You can
And
taste
then, do you know why they do the gurgling or the weird sipping thing?
I'm not
To like
gonna do
coat
it.
them out?
Yes.
Well, it's to bring
Perfect.
oxygen into your mouth.
Oh.
So when oxygen comes into your mouth, when you make that little kind of
Yeah.
sip, the
I
oxygen
won't
mixed with the
demonstrate
wine,
that part.
and it kind
That's
of
pretty
and it
much
brings out
the
the
gist of
flavor.
it.
So who else wants to try some more?
Who's next?
I would love to try some wine.
Okay, sure. Come.
Oh, okay. Well, just go first. You go first.
So do your little swirl. You gotta get your little swirl. So usually when you hold wine, you usually want to hold the stem and not the glass, because then you'll heat up the wine.
Oh, interesting.
So that's why some wine glasses are stemless and some are, they don't have stems because they don't care. But the reason you have the stem is so that you don't change the temperature of your wine, because your hands are warm, right? So give it a little swirl. Here, I'll do one with you. So we'll do you give it a nice little look, all right? We'll give her a nice turn. We see those beautiful tannins. So what do you guys taste? You taste anything?
It's very fruity.
Right. You get a little like currants, you get some cherries in there. So what I love about Spanish wine is that you get a lot of bright, radiant fruits in there. There's a touch of sweetness, but there's no kind of lingering taste in your mouth once you're done, right? It's clean, right? Doesn't make you kind of schmuck up your mouth, or it's not very acidic. So
This is wonderful.
I'll pour a couple more for everybody else. Don't be shy.
Everything, every wine is very, like you feel it. Like you feel the fermentation.
I think they say a glass of wine a day keeps. I think they say if you have 2 glasses of wine, you're technically called an alcoholic. So.
That's so good.
But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll get into the nitty gritty. I guess I should open another one, and I spilled wine all over this.
That's okay, we'll leave it out.
Perception.
It takes me maybe like 2 seconds.
Like full?
This was not. I'll be.
Chill.
You okay?
No, it's white wine that does that to me.
Red wine, people say it makes them feel tired or sleepy, but I think it's just, I think it's they just don't eat. And then you get like that insulin rush and then,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'll keep one over here. So, Leticia, do you want to talk a little bit? So people ask me about this imposter syndrome board that you put up.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so
Oh.
Kristen asked me and I didn't, I know we were saying that it was supposed to be like 5,
Yeah. Well, no, so these are the common characteristics of imposter syndrome that we're going to talk a bit about when we go through the presentation, but I thought I'd just put them up there because I think a lot of people tend to not know what some of the common ones are, and I think it's a great way for us to share together some of the common things that we see. The 5 types of imposter syndrome are a little bit different. That's where I was talking about the perfectionist, the soloist, the natural genius. There's a couple other ones that I have to kind of come to mind, but I didn't put those ones up here because I figured we'll talk about it later. But yeah, this is kind of start us off a bit. So start thinking through your brains on some of these common themes that we're going to talk about.
So what is the original definition of imposter?
Imposter, we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
All right. Well,
We're moving
I
in.
guess we'll just move
Let's
in.
not spoil it, guys.
No, because you asked, start thinking about it.
I would actually try, to be honest. I would try.
You ever do,
Laugh? No.
you gonna learn today.
You
All right.
have to have your stuff.
Hmm?
You have to have the lock pin and the gel and the stuff.
Yeah, I have all that stuff. How do you think I do it?
You do your own here?
No, let's see.
Oh.
Okay. Whenever you're ready. Okay, so, let me take this out of my pant pocket. So we're going to talk about imposter syndrome today. I didn't really have something concrete that I was like 100%. I think what was interesting going through the process of planning something for imposter syndrome, I think I realized how much that impacts me on my day-to-day life because I think before even coming here, I had posted some work that I looked at my Instagram profile and I was like, man, I don't post any of my pictures as a photographer. And I was kind of like, I don't know, most of you probably know I take photos. And I just was really insecure. I didn't think that my work was good enough. And so as we've been putting on workshops and doing things, a lot of people haven't shown up because they felt like they don't have anything to show, they're not good enough to be in this space. And I think for me, it was just giving people the opportunity to kind of share and talk about some of those things and hear it from real people. So I think social media right now is really big on telling you all these success stories and telling you how amazing people are and how they're accomplishing all these great things, but we don't get to see that other side of like those moments when people don't have that faith or don't believe in themselves or don't actually feel like they're super successful. And so kind of just to get us warmed up, I think I know everyone, but I don't think everyone knows each other. We'll just do like a quick icebreaker. So usually one of my favorite icebreakers that I like to do is say your name and then say interesting fact about yourself and then something that you've completed in the last, let's say, this year that you're proud of. So I'll go first. My name is Chris. Interesting fact about myself. I would say I'm really good at skee ball. I'm a skee ball expert. I love like those arcade kind of like old school games. I think there's one where you like have to hit the clowns with the ball. I really love that. I wish that was a competitive sport. And then something that I've accomplished in the last year that I'm really proud of, I would say building this collective with all the people here, I think having the opportunity, I think I've lived in Toronto for over a decade, and I think in the last 4 years, especially because of COVID, I haven't made friends, I haven't gone outside, I haven't hung out with people in real life. So it's nice to have like a lot of friends and family here. So yeah, I think that's something I'm really happy and proud of, and I hope that we can keep building and just continue to grow and make more friends and more family. So yeah, I'll pass it to you, Nina.
Oh man, you shouldn't have sat here. My name is Nina. I'm a photographer and an artist. And something interesting about me is that I like to like do things just to see what will happen. Like I like pranks and seeing what like people's reaction is and stuff. And then what was the other one? What was the other thing?
One thing you're proud of that you accomplished this year.
Oh, this year so far, huh?
6 months. We're halfway through the year.
Crazy.
I know.
What did I do this year? Oh, you know what? I'm so glad we did our photo shoot together. That like made me feel really accomplished. And you know, we did it in classic fashion, very fast. So it was instant gratification. Love that.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Okay, my name is Kwabena, and I love to bike and make music. Something that I've done recently is in May, I actually released my first ebook. So I'm proud about that, and I have the second one on the way. So
Cool.
That's amazing. What's your ebook about?
Oh, it's about healing naturally. If someone has gone through some form of health complications, it's encouragement and inspiration to like keep pushing through, and to like, you know, learn that it's possible to heal and you don't have to be with your disease forever. Like you can overcome it.
Right? Amazing. All right, next.
Hi everyone, my name is Fola and I'm a second year communication student. I think something interesting about me, which I did not know was interesting, as in like I didn't know it was not normal, I end up saying yes to every opportunity I get, every idea that's brought up to me, and I think it really helps me learn, and I get to do fun stuff that way. I just say yes to anything that comes my way, and yeah, I think that's interesting.
And then what's one thing that you accomplished this year that you're proud of?
I recently moved to Canada, so I've been living on my own and I've never done that. So I feel like I learn something new every single day. I learned how to use a washing machine. I did not know how to use one. So I have my mom on call with every like thing I'm doing at the house. But yeah, I've been learning something new every day.
Awesome.
That's good. That's good. Whoa.
I mean, we're coming up last week.
There you go.
Alright, so I guess I'll have a little spoiler alert before I come up. My name is Letitia Stevens, and I, by day, do business development and enablement for an insurance company, and I guess by night, I'm a mom and a wife. Fun fact about me, I actually love to salsa dance. Love salsa. I always say, like, I could be a different culture, I could be Spanish in a different lifetime, so love everything Spanish, specifically the salsa dancing. And then I guess proudest moment for me this year, 6 months in, would be I wrote the Link Up Crew Collective jingle, so I think that was a big accomplishment for me. One of the
Can you
songs.
sing us a tune? Can you give us one of those samples?
Yeah, I feel like the samples on a
Yeah,
lot of the
Give us a
videos.
acapella. Give us an acapella. You know?
But yeah, I did. So that was a really cool accomplishment, and I think more to come with that as I start to tap a lot more into my creative side. But yeah.
Amazing. And next?
I am Kristen. I'm a fourth year creative advertising student specializing in copywriting. One thing that I'm proud of that I've done, accomplished this year is my placement. It was 4 long months. 4 long months, and it was a lot of ups and downs. I'm glad I got through that because it's a huge learning curve for me. And interesting fact is there's a lot of interesting stuff.
Just pick one. Just pick one. Don't go through the catalog.
I don't know. I know a bit of American Sign Language.
Oh,
Okay,
that's so
throw up
cool.
some signs for us.
Oh, right now?
What's up, bud?
Really?
Hello, how are
I
you?
can sing.
Okay.
Nice.
I believe you. Thank you. Alright, next.
Hi, my name is Ruse. I'm just a recent graduate from the advertising program from VOCAD. Interesting facts about me. Also going for a catalog. I one time went parachuting in Thailand when I was around 10 years old.
Wow.
Whoa.
I know, which was crazy. At first, I was like, my parents were crazy for doing that. I was around 10. Okay, that was that. What else? Well, I really like the poster I made for this event, for Link Hub, the wine thing. That was really cool. I loved it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was good.
Amazing. Since we have Prima here, Prima, why don't you tell everybody?
You missed 2 people.
No, we're gonna go back. Prima, tell us a little bit about yourself. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Hey, my name is Karima. I'm a UGC creator, and one thing about me that I'm proud of, right?
Yeah. Well, interesting fact about yourself.
Oh, I like to crochet.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And what I'm proud of is like starting to do UGC because if you know me, I'm very much a quiet person, so it's definitely out of my comfort zone. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Nice.
And then our 2 lovely guests here. Why don't you introduce yourself?
So my name is Anika. Interesting fact, I really like learning about the bodies, especially women's bodies and pregnancy and things like that, and how to just navigate this world as women. So I'm thinking about maybe heading over there, shockingly. And where I'm coming from is I studied law, so that's a huge jump for me. But we'll see. What was the other one?
Interesting fact about yourself.
That was the interesting
Okay.
one. So the accomplishment for this year?
Yeah, something this year.
What have I accomplished? To be honest, at school, at work, I've been given a lot more to do, and I feel like my manager's preparing me to take over her role in the future. So that's really good. I work at Pinterest, but yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. And next.
Hi everyone, my name is Mara. What's interesting about me? I'm pretty handy. I'm a very handy person,
Okay.
and I secretly like gardening.
Okay.
Oh, I can my
Yeah.
Low key.
Yeah. What have I accomplished this year? I don't know, to be honest.
One thing you're proud of. I think that's the biggest piece. Not just an accomplishment. What are you proud of?
That was last year, but my year so far has been crap.
Yeah, but you haven't accomplished one thing, Mara. One thing.
One thing that you
It's
feel good
almost 6
about.
months in.
Out of like a crappy year,
Have
one
you
good
planted
thing.
any cool plants?
Yeah.
Have
Well,
you-
yeah, my flowers and my things are growing, like my lettuce and
Oh,
my
that's good.
sunflowers. What else is growing? My kale is growing.
Good.
I'm trying my hand at sweet potatoes, so yeah,
Right.
my flowers are growing, so that's nice.
Yeah, growing plants in this economy is well. So
Yeah.
you go to the
It
store.
sucks that I have to buy dirt though, or soil.
I have actually a bunch of dirt. I could actually give you dirt.
But how am I gonna get it though?
No, it has to be good dirt. Like, it has to be
Yeah,
I
fertile
made dirt.
as well. And that is pricey, honestly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You can make your own dirt. I made dirt last week.
How do you
Oh,
make dirt?
You just like
That's the interesting
compost and then you like get some worms.
Instead of like composting your compost, like putting it in the compost, just to like compost
Keep
it
it,
yourself.
yeah.
Keep it, yeah.
You just like buy
I know,
worm
and it
casting.
stinks.
It's no, mine didn't smell that bad.
But you had it outside.
Depends what you
obviously.
put in
Yeah.
it though. You can't
Yeah,
put all
the-
chicken
you
and-
can't put like acidic foods in there, then it will smell. But if you put like
Like
neutrals,
vegetables only.
Yeah. Well, you can put some stuff, but not least.
Hi everybody.
Hi.
My name is Kwao. I have no friends count. I will. Okay. Yes, my name is Kwao. I am a filmmaker. What else? Something I'm proud of is I actually shot a short film last year. I mean this year. I consider last year to be the last 12 months, so
Yeah.
I'm counting it because it's like it was a big thing. And right now I am working to get it finished. You know, like working on music and all that fun stuff. And interesting fact about me is I speak Japanese.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Acting like you know more than just that.
Yeah, I like languages and culture and art and yeah, and you know I just heard about Chris's Collective and I was like, okay, that sounds something that very much aligned with what I'm doing because I want to also help creatives and you know build spaces for people to share their art and make more and better art. So yeah, thank you for being here and for having me too.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good. All right. Well, let's. If anyone wants a drink or some water, this is probably the time.
I'm good.
And then I'll let Letitia take.
Use ChatGPT.
Cheers. Wow. That's my saying.
That's good.
And I was like working alone at home.
Okay, Letitia, take it away.
Look, I need a mic.
I spoke to buddies. You have a big voice. You're a singer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That's what it means?
I don't know about all that.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
That's what it means?
Well, you know what, guys? I'm super stoked to talk about this exciting topic. Let's go.
Hold in all your excitement.
Imposter syndrome. So for those of you who don't know what imposter syndrome is, essentially it is this feeling of having this innate doubt, uncertainty, you know, feeling like you're not adequate, you know, and it's something that really affects you from achieving your goals. And so we wanted to talk about this imposter syndrome because again, we really think it's something that's a common thing amongst pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
So I think taking the opportunity to be vulnerable, have conversations about it, share our experiences is going to be so key. You know, we have an esteemed panel, or I don't know if I'd call a panel, but individuals that are willing to share. And I thought, you know what, why not have me start with kind of sharing my story and kind of my journey with imposter syndrome, and then I'll toss it on over to these folks to kind of share their story. And we'll go from there. I want to keep it very open, very vulnerable, and have everybody engaged in the conversation as well, so that way it doesn't feel like it's something where it's stuffy. But I'll share my story. I think when I think about my journey with imposter syndrome, you know, I think about, especially in my adult life, I've always constantly had this like voice in the back of my head that's always telling me, okay, I don't belong in these spaces, or I don't belong here. And after I've worked so hard, I find a lot of the times, it's like there's always something that's always telling me I'm not good enough, right? I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but I find that a lot. So, you know, when I think about my career and where I've gone in my career, I've done a lot of jumping up the ladder. And even when I go into those rooms and those spaces and I go in meetings, there's always like this thing where it's like, okay, is what I'm saying making sense? Mm-hmm. And I've gotten a lot of accolades, a lot of awards. It's funny enough, the other day I was telling my husband Chris here that I had gotten an award for, like nominated for something for my company, and I was like, do they know that like I'm not sure if they're gonna think like, really me? Like, did I make a mistake here? Or like, I just felt inadequate. I felt like I wasn't deserving of the accolade. And I feel like not even just in my professional life, I tend to find that happens a lot to me also in my personal life, especially if anybody's like giving me a compliment, I'm kind of just like, oh, like I feel weird, like don't compliment me, and I don't know, like that's weird to me. But I feel like a lot of the times it's something where it's just like the self-doubt comes in. A lot of the times, you know, there's these feelings of,
understanding that people view me in a certain way. They view me as being confident, they view me as being successful, but I don't feel like that, right? And I think we're gonna really unpack a lot of those feelings when we talk about it today. But I think the way that I've kind of gone along that journey of trying to get over it is to be in spaces like this where I'm able to kind of talk through those journeys, share the vulnerable things with you guys, and try to tackle it head on and be a lot more self-aware when I'm having those feelings. So now when I'm in a meeting at work now, I'm catching myself and I'm like, okay, this is the self-doubt popping up right now. This is the feeling of inadequacy popping up. How do I change that? How do I now course correct and say, that's not who I am? So that's kind of a little bit my journey when it comes to, I'd say, imposter syndrome. I experience it a lot when it comes to self-doubt at work. I experience it a lot in my personal life when it comes with compliments and accolades and achievements and feeling like I'm not enough or I'm not worth being in that space. And so I wanted to share that because I hope that kind of gives you guys a lens on the fact that we probably have a lot of those commonalities. And I wrote this down because I think it's important to understand what the characteristics of imposter syndrome, some of the common ones are, and you're probably gonna hear a lot of these pop up as people talk about their stories. Because really the idea behind this is to share our stories and to share kind of what we're going through. And ultimately, hopefully at the end of this, walk away with some tips and maybe things that we can try to now self-identify those feelings when they creep in and figure out how we can now combat them. So, I'm gonna pop on over to our esteemed individuals here who are so willing to share their stories and their vulnerabilities. So thank you guys so much for being vulnerable. We have Nina, we have Kwab, and we have Fala, who are also, I'm sure, undergoing a lot of these feelings of imposter syndrome right now, and it's real, right? These are real feelings. And I think it's so great that we're in this forum because we can just call it out, call it like it is, and be like, listen, I'm actually like feeling away. I'm gonna actually be transparent before I even get to you guys. You know, Chris had said, oh, I want you to host this event. And I said, me? Like, of all people, you want me to host this? And that was a moment of self-doubt for me, a moment of imposter syndrome already. Like just being in this space right now, because I was thinking to myself, there has to be someone else that's a little bit more qualified to do this, a little bit more, you know, adequate or had a lot more qualifications than me, i.e. Chris. He could speak a room, in my opinion, right? And that's again where I'm comparing myself to other people. But I had to take a step back and say, you know what? He believes in me, people see me, I can do this, right? And that's the self-awareness piece. That's me thinking to myself, no, I can do this, I got this. Like, stop imposter syndrome, get out of here, right? So I just wanted to share that because I think that's also important too, that we get into spaces where people see what we can do and we don't believe that in ourselves. So believe in yourselves, right? So yeah, I was saying that we have Nina, we have Kwab and Fala, and I thought, you know what, might as well start and just kind of go down the line with sharing our stories. So I'll start with Nina, and then what we'll do is probably just kind of ask some questions.
Sure.
Where we're going. So yeah, you want to share your story about how you kind of navigate through imposter syndrome and what that looks like?
Yes. Okay, so first off, I just want to say, like, you're a great leader, and we had, like, a workshop before where I was, like, blown away. So it's so funny, like, reality versus, like, you know, your feelings are valid, but they're not real, right?
Yeah.
So it's, like, it's interesting how, like, I'm like, of course Letitia would host. Like, she's, like, a good leader, has a good presence, but, like, it's funny hearing you say, like, what the reality is for you when, you know, when you hear that. And I relate to that a lot. It's really hard for me to take compliments and everything. So I'm someone that's always struggled with imposter syndrome. I've had it, like, a lot. And what imposter syndrome is for me is, like, just me standing in my own way. Yeah. And it's like, you know, it stems from initially, like, keeping you safe, because you stay in your parameters, right? You stay in your safe space and you don't leave that, so then you just stay small, right? Because that's where you're comfortable, but it's not healthy and it's not good. But it's like a huge hurdle to get over, because it's like your own mental math and mental hurdles that you're putting in front of yourself, right? So my story, I have many, but like recently I was in school to become a paramedic, and all of my peers were doctors from other countries, and I always was like really hard on myself and always needed a lot of support, because when I would go do any assignment, I was like, oh my god, like I'm the dumbest one in the room, right? and I would be striving for like these grades where you needed a 70% to pass, and I was like, I need to get like at least 80s, I need to get 80s, and I would get so hard on myself when I wouldn't. And then I was talk to my peers, and they were like, Nina, like, we're like doctors and we're just like trying to pass, like just don't be, as long as you pass the course, that's all that matters. You can get the lowest grade, but it's still a pass. Like C's get degrees, you know? So like, yeah, but you know, in my mind I'm like, yeah, but like, what if I show up on scene and I'm not like perfect? And that's the thing, is like the perfectionism, right? So anyways, like there's a lot of things that we can do to help ourselves get over these like mental blocks that we put in front of ourselves. There's like something that I want to practice more is journaling, because then you can write down like what you think of yourself, and then you can write down what you want to think of yourself, because like you know when you're having a bad thought about yourself, right? So you can write down like where you want your thoughts to be, and then you can find a middle ground and like practice that like at least once a day, like read it somewhere, like that middle ground, so that's not like such a big jump from like hating yourself to loving yourself. It's like crazy, right? So like somewhere in the middle of being like, you know, something that you can believe, because it's also hard to believe good compliments or something, right? But like a phrase that you think about every day, because your thoughts become your reality, and it'll be easier to believe the compliments when you're able to believe like something substantial, but like in the middle of like from where you're at, where you want to be, you know? So anyways, that's my story.
Love that.
Thanks.
Love that sharing, and I love the fact that you talked about, you know, really getting outside of your comfort zone and understanding that, you know, it's really a matter of what must get done versus get perfect, if that makes sense.
Right. And so like I did some research on it, and what they say is like the only way out is through. And so you just need to like be scared and do it anyways, right? Like be scared of like whatever it is that you think is standing in your way, and then try anyways.
Yeah, it's not stigmatizing the failure, right?
Yeah, and like, you know what's the worst that's gonna happen is that you're just gonna be in the same position that you've been in.
Right.
So
No, I love that. Words of wisdom. Does anybody have any questions for Nina? Like what, you know, do you think about her journey, her story, any thoughts that stick out for you?
I was gonna ask you guys, I feel like you guys never talked about the creative side of it. So I know, Letitia, you make music, and I know you never talked about that, and I know, Nina, you're a photographer. So do you feel like for that imposter syndrome when it comes to your work, is it interesting that you guys still find that imposter syndrome in things that maybe aren't maybe your natural gifts? So sometimes I think if I'm doing something that I don't care about, then maybe sometimes that's what I'll chalk it up in my mind as like, the reason I don't perform well on something is because I don't actually care. Whereas if I do something that I actually care about, I typically find I put a different level of effort, and I think I care more. I think if people talk about my work, like my artwork or my photos, I think I get offended if you tell me it sucks. If you told me like my drawing sucks, I know I'm not a good person like drawer or artist that way, so I wouldn't care, right? So do you guys feel like when it came to like school or your work, like why do you think you have that when it comes to like, you know, school? Like, did you want to be a paramedic? Like, is that?
Yeah, so like with academics, it's like something I'm just really hard on myself about already. And like, you know, like I said, it's like I feel like I'm the dumbest one in the room all the time. So it's like it's like more painful than it has to be for no reason really. And then with art and stuff, with photography, for the longest time I didn't call myself a photographer at all, because I was like, real photographers like do all of these things. I'm just doing this like for fun, I don't take it seriously. So it's like, you know, kind of like shame, because what if somebody says like, yeah, you're not even good, you know? So with like the creative side, for sure, like it took me so long to come around to say like, yeah, I'm a photographer. But to your point, well, about not caring, I think that's like the key, is like having a little bit of delusion and a little bit of like nonchalance, so that you can like find a happy medium, because like the delusion helps you like believe in yourself. and then like nonchalance is also like, well, whatever happens, right? Instead of, because I know for myself in a lot of, because it shows up in a lot of different areas in my life, the imposter syndrome, and I know for myself it's like, sometimes when I'm like having a goal, it feels like if I don't achieve it, I'm gonna die. Like that's what it feels like, right? So it's like do or die.
Yeah.
And where it's like, it's not that, you're not gonna die. You're just gonna keep on going, and that's all that's gonna happen, right? So that's what it feels like a lot. And like, I just use the paramedic school example because like academics is something that I'm so hard on myself about. So it was showing up a lot more often, where some other things I've like gotten over in terms of my photography and art, right? But
yeah, I think for me, like it's both in, I think, professional and creative space. Like I think my imposter syndrome and the way that I kind of, you know, articulate that out or experience it is I find that I almost like sabotage my own success, whether that's in a professional space or creative space. Like I'll start to make excuses, or I'll say, again, I'm not good enough, or I'll say, you know, oh, it needs to be very like perfect, or I just can't do it, or I'm like, I'll say no to opportunities because I'm like, I'll start to sabotage. Like I'm just like, it's not me. Like I'm just not good for this. So whatever, I don't care about it. Like I'm gonna sabotage it. So I think I sabotage a lot of my own success. I sabotage my growth a lot. But I think it's really about, again, finding ways to be aware of that and nipping it in the bud and saying, no, like stop sabotaging yourself. You know, stop underestimating yourself, because you can and you will do it, right? So yeah, I think for me it's not different. It doesn't translate differently depending on the space that I'm in.
Because I think when you made the Link Up Crew Collective song,
Yeah.
right? I think that's one of the few songs. Because where did you even find that beat? Did you just find it randomly online?
Yeah, I think I randomly found it. It was like a no copyright beat. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just let myself go here. I'm gonna not, again, self-sabotage. I'm just gonna focus on the words and let them come. And it was just such a relief to have that feeling and to be able to do that. So yeah, I agree. Like I think even especially with my singing, it was always like, well, I don't want to be a celeb. I don't want all the attention on me. Like that's weird. Like that's how good I was. Like, oh my god, I don't want to be a celebrity. But then again, that was just sabotaging my own success. That has absolutely nothing to do with my ability to be able to sing and go out and, you know, do my best at something that I actually love to do, right? And I kept sabotaging it. So I agree with that. But yeah, it's a work in progress. Great segue into Quav.
Yeah.
Please do tell your story.
So for me, the first thing that comes to mind is perfectionism. So I've always, from the time I was a young boy, I was always trying to be perfect in everything I did. Partially that's just because my parents were very like go-getter type of people. Like my mom's an educator, she's still a teacher. Been over 25, 30 years she's been teaching. She used to teach at a university. And my parents have always been like, you know, you need to put in the work, go hard, don't slack off. So for me, when I was younger, the pressure came in because I felt like if I didn't achieve or at least accomplish what they would see as being successful, then I like let them down. So that's where, for me, there was a lot of self-doubt. Like, I would actually prefer that they didn't see me at like a game or something. Like, I didn't invite my parents to like sports events, because just for the fact of them seeing me not win was enough for me to be like, it's too much. You know, and this is subconscious. Like, you're a child, you don't want to let them down, but you feel like if they don't see you at your best, then there's an issue with that. So I think that leads to more perfectionism. And even now I can say there's still a level of perfectionism, but I've learned to, I kind of learned that it's, sometimes you just have to let things go. Like not try and control everything. You know, like sometimes you're not gonna win. Sometimes everything isn't gonna be polished or perfect. And I think that even caused me to stop releasing work when I know I should. Like even the ebook, I had that idea from years ago, but until I got like a team behind me to like encourage me, like, hey, you can do this. I was like, oh, you think so? They're like, yeah, like, cause again, the idea was there, but it was just like, well, what if they think it's this? What if they think it's that? It's like, where did these thoughts come from? You know, the whole content was already there, and I knew it was something I could do. It's just a matter of how the world was going to perceive it when it was finished. And so I had to definitely still work to overcome the fear, not only of failure, but also self-doubt, self-sabotage, comparing myself to other people. And it shows up in different ways, because I wouldn't say there's like a jealousy, but it's almost like you know what you can accomplish. So if you don't meet your own standard, you're just not happy, you know? And sometimes, again, it's toxic because the amount of pressure you placed on yourself. Like, I was actually thinking during this conversation, like you said, something to do with like pride, and you didn't say this, but I was thinking pride. The opposite would be like humility. You know, sometimes we overestimate ourselves, but sometimes we also underestimate ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll think we're too good, and then there's times where we don't think that we're as good as we really are.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, I can do this, but why, for some reason, am I thinking that I'm not good enough? You know, like you said, you started this event. Why are you telling yourself it's not going to work? Why are you telling yourself you can't make music? Like, what's that voice like whispering in your ear that it's not going to work?
Are you scared of taking L's? Do you think now that taking an L is actually an important part of life?
Absolutely. You know, and understanding that the L is just a lesson. You know, that's like the mature aspect of looking at it, versus the L is like you're done, you're toast, you know. And I think possibly too, I remember in elementary school, there were certain teachers who would tell me, oh, if I didn't do this or this, then I would fail and I'm not going to become anything. So it's like you can download those messages subconsciously and be reminded, like, oh, if you don't do the best you possibly can, it's not going to work.
Or not that it's not gonna work, but like you're a failure.
You're a
right?
failure, yeah.
Like,
So I have to. It has to work no matter what.
Yeah.
And the other segue to that is that can also affect your relationships too, because you start to put the same amount of pressure on other people when you don't realize, like, maybe they don't have the same drive as you. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean they're not like capable, but just because you place all this pressure on yourself, like, you can't do that to someone else. Like, it's not right. The next thing is perfectionism and avoiding new opportunities. For me, there's definitely been a fear of change in my life, where it could just be the fear of moving to a new environment, the fear of finding a new job, finding a new home, new relationship. The fear of change for me has been a very big setback, which I've been able to overcome, but it's been forced out of me. Like, situations arise where I have no choice but to face like the storm, so to speak. And now I actually embrace new opportunities, but I think just the fear of change can hold a lot of people back, because you may not know what you can accomplish until you actually open that door. You know, like you're so comfortable in your zone, in that safe space. You know, it's convenient. You've been doing the same thing for all these years, but what if God is telling you to do more? What if there's a blessing down the street and you just want to do exactly what you've been doing because it's comfortable? And then also, we're in a society that creates this comfortability in us. Like, we have convenience stores everywhere.
Yeah.
They want everything to be convenient for us, you know. Just sit home, you can order food right to your front door. You can order medication. You can order weed, drugs, liquor right to your front door. Like, you don't actually have to get up and do anything now.
Right.
But with that, it's like you have to actually get up and find opportunities. Like, they're not just gonna come to your door, you know? So, you know, not only, again, the self-sabotage, procrastination, but being afraid of change is something that I think we have to be able to overcome through, like, believing in yourself, you know, believing you're able to get a better job, you know, believing you're able to get into a better house. You know, like your situation doesn't have to stay the same forever.
Right.
You know, maybe that's like a self-limiting belief where we just accept things as they are. And for a time, like, I don't think it's wrong to be content and grateful, but I do think there's a time in life when you need to like reap what you sow and actually like get the most out of your experience. Especially if you are a hard worker, if you are disciplined, you're faithful, you really, you know, have like a good head on your shoulders. Like, there should be a time when you are able to like open up doors that basically will give you the reward you're looking for. You know, because I think, I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling now, but I think we're trained to just accept the bare minimum in terms of what we get out of life as a result of sometimes our parents, you know, like for instance, I'll just give you an example. My grandma, she was an orphan, so she didn't grow up with her mom or dad, right? So she grew up in a home and they took very good care of her, right? But within that, there's a certain level of, let's just say, the structure she was under. Let's just say, if she had her parents there, she may have a different level of outlook in life. You know, like maybe she would have believed in herself differently. And I'm not saying she failed in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
She'd had many kids, grandkids, all these things. She's still alive now, but I think through our upbringing and how it like causes us to like settle for certain things. Right. It's like we don't know that there's more. You know, it's like we're comfortable and it's not bad. Like, I'm not saying, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, like, sometimes though, it's not that like they're comfortable, it's just like that, like you said, things happen to you when you're young and then it just stays with you because our generations before us, they didn't have time to think about their feelings and like why life is hard for them. They just had to like grin and bear it to survive, right? And so we're in like a space, a time and space where like we have time to think about things. Like we have time to think about our feelings and to like work on ourselves. We're like, I think like some of these things are just like people trying to do the best with what they have, and unfortunately it's falling short, and that's because they're not taking the time to like deal with these like traumas or demons or whatever happened in the past, right? Where like I think imposter syndrome is a little different because you're almost like fully aware of how like you have no proof that like you're like a loser and like you can't accomplish anything, because you actually are usually an overachiever where you've accomplished many things but you don't believe it. You think that like you tricked everyone into them believing that you accomplished things, right? Where sometimes like it sounds like your grandma had other things happening where it wasn't imposter syndrome so much as like she was trying her best but like wasn't able to perform because her best fell short.
The first thing that comes to mind is survival mode.
Right.
You know, I think when you're stuck in survival mode and you're just trying to get by, you don't really have time to analyze everything, because you don't have the evidence or the answers. Like, you're just trying to, okay, you have kids, like she had kids at 18, you know, so you're getting through life quickly, you're trying to piece together everything, and I'm not gonna say like there's a level of perfectionism there, because you're probably just more focused on yourself at that time, but
just focusing on like trying to get to the next day, right? And like your grandma having like kids at such a young age, it's like so much responsibility, right? So I mean, I think it's just like a slightly different, because like, you know, it's like a little judgmental, I would say, to say like she could have done more, right?
No, I don't like, I'm not even saying she should have done more.
Right.
I'm just saying, based on our circumstances, it causes us to go through life with
trickle
what
down
we have.
effect, right? Like,
and so if I was in the same position, I would probably be doing, and when I say the same thing, it's like, it's not even that it's wrong though, you know.
It just is
It
what it
just
is.
is what it is, you know, but perfectionism, I think as we get older, we can start to look back in our life and be like, okay.
It's not that serious. I feel like there's a point where you get to a certain age and then you're like, that stuff I was worrying about wasn't that serious.
Well, what I think though too is we're starting to look at how our decisions affect the people.
Well, I almost disagree a little bit with that too, because I think that imposter syndrome doesn't necessarily stop at a certain age. I think that you can experience it at any age or stage in your life. So I think we probably want to be careful with that kind of verbiage, I think, just because it's something where, you know, my grandma can experience feeling, you know, like she's not adequate, that she still doesn't believe in herself, you know what I mean? So like, I think it doesn't necessarily depend on that. I do agree with you in the sense that, you know, maybe when we think about a trickle-down, that we've started to learn a lot more from our experiences, and now we're becoming a lot more self-aware as we continue to age. But these are really real feelings and things that people can still experience, old age or young age, right? And I think, Kwabi, you know, you were talking a bit about, you know, relationships and talking about perfections and things like that. And I think a question that I would have for you guys, and anybody, you know, here can answer, you know, how do you think that imposter syndrome has affected, you know, like your relationships, whether that be with your family or your friends or your mentors or whoever, or even yourself, and what does that look like for you? Like, how do you think that's impacted your relationships?
As I said before, it's originally not good.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like on this chart here, I have overworking. Anytime you're overworking or overachieving, you're not so considerate about how that's affecting the people around you.
Yeah.
You know, because you're more so just in your own zone. It's like, I gotta get what I need. You know what I'm saying? And not to even bring up my grandma again, but what I'm saying is, as parents, we can put that same amount of pressure on our kids.
Yeah.
It's like we expect them to overwork
Yeah.
and them to overachieve because it sometimes makes us feel, you know, it's like, okay, we've done our job.
Right.
You know, I may have not worked that hard, but if I can get you to do what I didn't get to accomplish, you can see how people feel like they're like, oh man, I let my mom down, I let my grandma down, I let my dad down.
Right.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
My life is where I had those moments where I had to be in survival mode, where nobody was coming to save me. Like if I didn't go out and get that work or get that job or sell that art or do whatever, I wasn't gonna eat, I wasn't gonna make it. So I think sometimes, yeah, you can look at those negative situations and say like, yeah, you know, it was hard, or my family or my friends didn't support me.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think of some of the worst moments in my life, and I think about how you reach this fulcrum where you have to like make this choice of like, yo, I'm either gonna come out of this as a winner or I'm gonna come out of this as a loser. And I think like your L conversation, I think for imposter syndrome, it's the same thing. You have to make a choice at all those intervals of like, I'm gonna keep having these negative conversations and thoughts about myself and what I do, or I'm gonna wake up one day and I'm gonna decide, no, like that's not who I am. That's not, maybe that's what my family was. Maybe that's what my parents was. But I don't have to be that.
You know what? I think there's like a cognitive dissonance because like you know that like you're being you're being so extra with like how you're thinking about yourself. You like are fully aware, right? Like sometimes it's like even like, you know, if I'm like complaining with girlfriends, it's like sometimes I'm like, I shouldn't even like say this because they're all gonna be like, what are you talking about? But it's like, and you know yourself, like how you feel about yourself. And the thing is that your feelings aren't real, but they feel real, right? And so it's not about like waking up one day and then like deciding I'm not gonna feel like this anymore. It's about like, you need to have like a good support system because depending on yourself, you fall on bad habits. It's like you have one day and you're like, I'm a failure, back at it.
But you're not gonna have that. So what do you do? Like think about that. Realistic, especially right now, you're not gonna have support. your friends are not
But
gonna
listen,
your
okay,
friends are not gonna message
So what
you
are
and
we
be like,
doing? So what are we doing right now? Because
but these are your friends though.
But listen, the point is you need community. So what you can do on
Yes.
your own
Yes.
is you can journal on your own, but waking up one day is impossible. Waking up one day and saying, I'm a new
It's not
person.
impossible. Nothing's impossible.
Overnight, the way
It's
you're
not
talking about it
impossible.
sounds like you go to sleep and you wake up and now you don't have it
No,
anymore.
I'm not saying that you don't have it anymore. I'm saying you wake up and you make a choice.
Right.
I'm saying you choose
And so that's like,
every day to make that effort. If you never make
Right.
the choice, it can't change, right?
So what they say about like imposter syndrome is like take 15 minutes a day to work towards your goal,
Well, I think
and
you
then
also,
see how far you get.
I
in a
agree, and
month.
I think you also have, to your point, you have to talk about it, right? You
Exactly.
have to. Imposter syndrome thrives in spaces where it's silent, where there's
Yeah,
no-
where you're talking to
So
yourself.
you really need to be able
Yeah,
to be a
that's
part
a big
of
thing.
community. And to Nina's point, being a part of the Lincoln Collective gives you that opportunity to have these dialogues, to have these conversations, to talk about it, to bring it to light. Because again, if you bring it to light, you're not going to be in the space where you're going through it alone. And that's a kind of the key to this, is that we want everybody to understand that this is something that we can talk about collectively, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I thank you for sharing that, Paula. I think it was great. I want to just make sure we're giving a space to Fala to share her story as well. Fala, over to you.
Break the flow,
Please.
so I'll get straight into it. At the age of 10, obviously didn't appreciate my work as a game designer. Yeah, it's good work, but when I got to my last year of high school and I had to decide what school I wanted to apply to and everything, I started questioning everything. I was like, okay, is the real world gonna like my art, my stuff, everything that I was doing? But again, I had my parents around me, I had people that were supporting me and going like, okay, you know what? You need to stop doubting yourself, because art that you're creating is enough and you'll do great. So it was like that part of a coming of age movie where everything is, the character has like sorted everything out, but then all of a sudden everything goes downhill. Because I applied to schools, I got in, and then I moved to Canada, which was really great. But at the same time, I was away from home, and at the same time, it was a new place, new people, and again at school it was a creative space where everyone knew what they were doing and I didn't, because I felt like I didn't belong. Back in Dubai, I had finally figured things out, which was also imposter syndrome, but I think I just didn't realize it was imposter syndrome because I had people around me telling me that I'll be fine. But I was all alone now, and I was questioning myself, doubting every single thing I was doing in the past. And that's when I kind of realized that I had my parents telling me that, specifically my dad, like I'd go up to him with my work and he'd be like, Fala, you're doubting yourself again. Everything you create is art. If you felt like you wanted to draw it out or create it, it's art. You're an artist. But I didn't have that here. I didn't have people telling me that. And I was like, you know what? I need to remind myself the fact that I came all the way here to study what I love. I'm enough. Like, I'm good. And yeah, I feel like if you're doing what you love, you're gonna be fine. Like, you belong because you got to that point where you're like, you know, you push yourself. And yeah.
Love that journey. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think, you know, just a question for you, you know, when you think about that journey, what was maybe like one of the hardest moments of, you know, really unlearning imposter syndrome so that way you could, you know, stay motivated, especially in a space where you're moving from Dubai, you're moving to a new country, you know nobody. Like, what was like that hardest moment that you had to now unlearn imposter syndrome and be able to kind of remain motivated, if that makes sense?
I think for me personally, it was realizing that I didn't have not only my parents around, but people that were pushing me through like high school, telling me that I was fine. They're not here all of a sudden, so I have to figure it out on my own.
Right.
I think that really pushed me because I was like, I am alone, but the fact that I'm alone here, I got here, I can push myself.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I do need them there, but they're not here, like I can't do anything about it. I just need to remind myself that I'll be fine. Remind myself of the things that they would say to me. And I think that really kind of like made me realize that I need to do it on my own now.
Yeah. And a key thing I want to say too is you don't have to do it on your own. You know, you got community, you got us. You know, and I think the first step and the fact that you even came out to share this is huge, right? And it's such a great journey. Like, I couldn't even imagine myself, even if I think about my own imposter syndrome, moving from Dubai all the way to Canada. Like, that would be crazy for me. But yeah, you know.
I finally decided on event management. I went from interior design to event management. was this whole process of realizing I do, as I said, I say yes to a lot of things. So I was in like, it was every medium of art. It wasn't just painting or drawing. I do paint and draw, but I decided on event management. That's what I'm studying right now.
Sounds fun.
So I wanted to open it up to see if anybody had any questions for us about, you know, what was shared, any thoughts, comments, feedback. Do you feel like you relate?
I have one thing to say.
Of course.
And maybe you guys have a different opinion, but I have a feeling that this might impact men more than women.
Okay.
But possibly in different ways. So I'm not going to say all around it impacts men more, but I think the way men go about dealing with it is more toxic, like whether it be, you know, addictive behaviors, suicide, you know, like as you said, if you can't express what you're feeling or going through and you have all this pressure on your shoulders, and maybe the people around you, because it's one thing to not believe in yourself, but if you have a network of people who also don't believe in you, that's added pressure. You know, your parents think, oh, that's your 5th business idea. Look at you. Why are you wasting your time? You know, maybe your spouse is saying the same thing. Your friends, it's like you have all these voices that are doubting what you're trying to accomplish. And maybe that's been there from the time you were a child. And if you're attributing your success as a man, you may feel like, well, you're just not worth anything. You know.
Well, I'd be curious to see what everyone has to say. Like, do you feel like, I think for like the women in the room, do you guys feel like there's a pressure of like expectation? Like, I think what Quab is alluding to is this idea that there's this expectation as a man that like you make 6 figures, or you work as a lawyer at this law firm, or you drive a Ferrari. It's not just a car, it's this kind of car. So do you feel like as women there's this expectation of like you, whether it's in your job or whether it's in your fields, like do you feel like you have to be at a, like, not just good enough to have that job, but you have to be this position in the company? Or
of course. I mean, I'm sorry, like, this is like a common and constant thing that is about women, not about men, to be frank. So like, women have a glass ceiling, men do not, because it's made for men. So like, in order to be a successful lawyer, you're competing with men who don't want you there.
Wow.
Right? And so I'm sure you have that experience of like, you need to do so much better than these guys because you're a woman. And that is the constant thing in all of society.
No, the question is, do you feel like there's an expectation?
Yeah, I just said it's an expectation. It's an expectation.
Not that you have to work harder to reach the goal. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, do you feel internally that like if you strip away all those other things, do you wake up in the morning and feel like, if I don't get this bread, if I don't drive a Ferrari, I'm not successful?
You know what? The expectations might be different, because they maybe like I think it depends on your culture, because maybe like financial things are not an expectation for women in your culture, and like. But like in my culture, the expectation is that I'm gonna take care of my family. Meaning, if I have my own family with my husband and my children, the expectation is that I'm still gonna take care of my parents and my family back home, right? And that is on me. It's not on my 2 brothers that I have that are older than me,
So
that have lived more years.
That impacts it.
Right? And so it depends on like what your situation is. But like famously actually imposter syndrome affects more women than men, and famously the pressures of society fall harder on women, because you guys have most men have like strict boundaries and outlines of like what the expectations are, where like we have like if you ever hear about mother-daughter relationships, it's like, yeah, a lot of them are toxic because mom is putting so much pressure on daughter to be a certain way, right? And then mom is putting pressure on daughter to like be prepared for the future because mom had XYZ, like her past was XYZ, and she suspects that her daughter's gonna have the same future, right? So you need to be, and it's like, then you hear other cultures too. It's like somebody gets married and then their mother-in-law is like so judgmental on like how wife can't cook, you know? So it's like that famously, this is something that affects like women every day, but it's something that we don't talk about because what would it be? It would be complaining about living life as a woman. Right?
No, and I believe that. I was just definitely more saying in terms of the men, we tend to do bad stuff as a result of
not feeling good enough.
Yeah, like I'm not saying women don't do bad stuff either, but it shows up differently.
For sure, women just grin and bear it, and then men act out.
They actually like will harm someone or harm themselves.
Right.
You know.
For sure.
Something I'd like to quickly add to what Nina said.
Yeah.
I'm 20, but she's seen it herself. But like, I feel like women have to constantly prove themselves in these fields.
Exactly.
I think that's like a big thing. Yeah.
Not even just in fields, like in life.
Yeah,
in general.
prove yourself.
Like, you gotta prove yourself at home. You gotta prove yourself at work. You gotta prove yourself out on the street. Like every day you get up, you're trying to prove that okay, I'm worthy enough to be here, to exist here. So it's like a constant battle. Like, am I good enough to even sometimes exist? Did I make the right decision this morning by doing that? Did I make the right decision in motherhood? Did I make the right decision with my partner? Did I make the right decision at work this morning? It's just a constant battle that women have to face each day, and it's like if you make one simple mistake or one mistake that is not a big deal to things, but it's been blown out of proportion, and you're like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? And then self-doubt comes in, and you have to be like, oh, I can't do this again because it had a negative impact on this person or that person. So you're like, oh, and you self-sabotage it. You constantly, you're in this constant battle with yourself, trying so hard not to only prove yourself that I am worthy, but others around you that you're worthy.
Wow.
To say, okay, I'm good enough.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
The constant battle, I love the way you put that, because that's exactly what we're doing with imposter syndrome. It's that failure and stigmatizing failure. Redefine what that looks like for you is what I would say. And I think, see mistakes as a part of growth. I'm also a victim sometimes of the perfectionist game where I think that everything needs to be perfect, therefore I don't do it. But know what must be perfect versus get done. My husband tells me that all the time, and he says to me, mistakes are a part of your growth. So don't stigmatize your failure, resist the urge to deflect, and know that you belong, right? And another one was celebrate the progress, not the perfection. So going back to, again, celebration of the things that you're doing. And lastly, again, I just go back to community, ending with community, ending with the support system. I think we had such a great conversation. I think at least for me tonight, being able to be up here on this quote unquote proverbial stage, I've been able to, in my own right, kind of have a little successful battle against self-doubt. A rebellion is what I like to call it. And it was refreshing for me to be able to kind of do this. I've never done this in this space, so I'm hoping that I did it well. Thank you guys.
You did a great job.
Thank you for the amazing stories and the willingness and the strength and courage to come up here and share that. I know that wasn't easy, and I know that you diagnosed imposter syndrome. I know, Paula, you were talking a bit about it as well before we started. So thank you for sharing. You guys are phenomenal. And I think we had a lot of great conversations from it. And I hope that you guys in the audience are walking away with a lot of things that you can work on yourselves and rethinking this idea behind imposter syndrome. So yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Thank you so
coming out.
much, everyone.
Oh yes,
Positive
I didn't know you had something else to say.
Oh yeah. So no, don't worry about it. So one of my biggest inspiration in my life. is
Yeah,
my
tell
mom,
me.
For sure, like I think everyone has imposter syndrome. Like it's something that everyone has. But like she really is a very strong woman. Like in any way, like literally, she grew up in Iran during the revolution, which was a time, I don't know if you guys know about the Iranian Revolution. It was when. It was literally the Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if everyone watched that series. It's like, okay, so women lost most of their rights, so you have to be completely covered. It was like, even today, like women can't sing or ride bikes, which is really ridiculous if you think about it. So yeah, she grew up in that environment where women were like really discouraged to do anything other than being wives and like being submissive to their husbands. But my mom, like literally, she was like so into academia and everything. She really pushed through. She went to university. She got her master's in Iran. And her and my dad, like, she wanted to go for a PhD in England. She actually went to her PhD with England with my 2-year-old brother, and I was 6 months old at the moment. So with 2 kids going to a new country, studying your PhD is insane, and everyone was telling her she is insane, that she is a nuts thing, but she went through it honestly, with my dad's help as well, like he also helped as well. But like, she did it, like she literally did it all, and like she got her PhD and she came back to Iran. She became a professor there for 8 years, and then we came back to Canada. So like she really goes, even as an adult now, I ask her like, it must have been so scary, it must have been crazy doing all that. But like she's so strong, like she does say about imposter syndrome and her being afraid, but she says she just goes through it and like she just go through it. Yeah, that's like really inspiring to me, honestly.
Wow, that's inspiring. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much again for coming out. Chris, I don't know if you have any last parting words.
No, I think the point of the conversation was just to see everyone kind of blossom. I think by the end of it, I think everyone kind of shared something or things about the topic, and I think at the end of the day, that's what society needs. That's what culture needs. We just need the opportunities to speak, because unfortunately, I think we're heading towards a digital world where everything's going to be AI and everything's just going to be like computer made, and so you may not in the future be in situations where you'll be in front of real people. So I think you have to just kind of relish in these moments of like genuine conversation, genuine discussion, genuine feelings and passion and emotion, because I think we just live in an era where like human to human interaction is rare, and even the ones that we do see, I feel like it's so manipulated and like geared towards like your attention span and what's gonna keep you on a TikTok video, where it's like, you You know, it's nice to be in a situation where like it's not scripted, it's not, you know, I'm not here to make $1 million off of what I say here. It's just like if one person's life changes from this session and you go on to be a better person, then I think that's success. And I think I remember years ago, like seeing people who used to do things with kids, like what Bruce was saying. I admired the people that took care of me as a kid because I was like, you guys spend your, like, think about it now, like you have free time, right? What do you do with your free time? You're not gonna go take care of a bunch of annoying, stupid kids and make noise.
I get paid
Oh,
for it.
you get
No, I get paid for it.
So that's what I'm saying. So like, I remember these people that would volunteer. Like, I remember the lady Wendy. I like said to her, like, you know, I really appreciate, like, you know, what you did. And I don't think at that time she realized that by taking that time out of her life and her day to just
take care of you,
to
yeah.
just take care of us and be there and like support us.
That's that. What you're saying is crucial because now the phones and iPads have taken over the kids' attention. Like I always had a babysitter, like Uncle Ron. I had friends from school who were older, my brother's friends. They would just watch me. But now, where is the kids getting the support from? You know, and this reinforces the fact that they're being trained to be like kind of rebellious. Not that they want to be, but it's like if your parents aren't guiding you, then who is? You know, it's the culture, it's the music.
You raise yourself.
You raise
You
yourself.
don't need your parents.
And then when your parents want to tell you, hey, no, you shouldn't do that, they're like, where have you been? Like, who are you?
Kids that, let's say, like, they have developmental issues like autism, right? And then you train them this way, they learn, and they get into a position with somebody that's a bad person, and that bad person takes advantage of them, and because they were told, respect authority, respect your elders, they don't say anything, because that's authority, that's elders, and now bad things happen, right? So you need to teach your kids to say no and to question things, and you as the parent, or you as the guardian, or the adult, needs to be open to hearing what's going on and everything else, right? So like that's just my only like point to like disciplining too much, is that like you're gonna end up raising people that are just gonna take whatever they get, instead of like saying like, no, I want more.
I never seen it from that point, because for me, discipline always meant like, you know, obviously what I'm doing is wrong, but it kind of made me think outside the box. Like I still would try to find a way around it.
And constraints, I love boundaries for that reason, because getting creative without breaking the rules, I love doing that. Like I love like somebody setting a parameter and then finding loopholes in it, right?
Like I couldn't leave the house past a certain time. You just find your way out the back window.
Right?
You know?
Hey.
It's like, and these are just the things we do, but again, you're right, like.
And you need like movers and shakers, people that are gonna like challenge the status quo, right? Because nothing changes otherwise. So.
Absolutely.
Any last words, anyone?
Kristen.
I love the banjo.
Any of it resonates?
The beating, yeah.
So you're a fan? You think it's good?
No, but I can see myself as like the streets.
You'll slap up a kid one time.
Because like I've seen even in my family, discipline and then like a little
No, not discipline.
no, like a little later on the discipline. And I'm like, maybe my parents are good for giving it. Yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
But relating to imposter syndrome, yeah, because I do have a background in fashion, and then switching to advertising, I was 100% the person comparing to my peers. So I'm like, okay. As you were saying, you know, like it's a glass ceiling for women, and sometimes as women you look at those around us and like, okay, how can I be better or improve so I can actually make it to the top? And that was sort of my mentality. The first round, and then going back to school, like it was a whole new experience with imposter syndrome, more of like a self-doubt and how I can, like, 'cause I was very hard on myself with grades and just wanting to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the last 2 years I'm like, it really doesn't matter. I kind of just like, not that I don't care, but I can still get where I need to be without all
Killing
these
yourself.
negative
Yeah.
that really, like, when I had that
That's a
epiphany,
humbling
yeah.
I
place
was
to
like,
come to though,
I agree.
because
Yeah.
it goes against your program of like, oh, the superficial reality of
Yeah.
always doing the best.
no, the creative industry, I haven't had a lot of representation within my program. Like all but one, okay, two of my professors were female, and like even that alone, that wasn't a lot of encouragement, because they're like up there, they're a little older, so it doesn't have the same effects.
They have their own expectations,
Yeah,
especially in
exactly.
advertising.
They definitely
like,
have
they
their
really
own
have.
That's all.
Yeah.
No, fair. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So you think this time kind of made you look at
If you wanted to say it, I think you were behind
Yeah,
the camera.
exactly.
but-
Exactly.
What can I say?
You gotta be in front of the camera.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I got to hear everybody's stories, and I think it's only fair that I share a little bit. They might run out of batteries.
That's okay.
But no, I mean, my history with imposter syndrome is just that I wasn't even able to utter the words, I'm a filmmaker, because it just felt like incredibly hard and vulnerable. And I think what helped for me is just redefining the standards. I think that we consider ourselves to be successful, or that we get to call ourselves like an artist or a filmmaker according to some random standard that we fix in our mind, like it comes from society or parents or whatever, where in fact the only thing that makes you a filmmaker or a photographer or an artist is whether or not you're doing the thing. And even if it's not like amazing and extremely successful or anything. So what helped for me is making a film, and so now I have no problem calling myself a filmmaker, even though it hasn't been released yet, because I did make it. So I think that can also help. It's just like doing the thing and redefining your right to call yourself that, or your right to do the thing by simply doing the thing, instead of like getting that outward recognition.
Yeah.
I think that was important for me, and that's what helped a lot with feeling like, okay, I'm not an imposter, like I'm actually an artist, I'm actually a filmmaker. Doesn't matter if millions of people see my stuff or not, I get to define, like what that is, and for me it's just making it. And I think that should be, or at least this is my proposal as to what we should consider to be able to call ourselves an artist or a filmmaker, whatever the thing is.
It feels good when you can like get rid of the pressure of how other people are viewing you. Because that's like the bulk of why we do what we do to some degree. Like some people just do things for external validation, but it's not to say that that's completely bad. But I think if that's the only reason you're doing it, then it can be problematic.
Exactly, it has to come from within, I think.
Yeah.
Where you define it on your own terms, and then you have your own objectives, and you can determine whether you are succeeding or not based on your own parameters, and not some random that you adopted that is not even scientific, it's not objective, it's also objective, right? So if it's also objective, you might as well decide what that means for you and hold yourself to your own standards. That's how I
So true. That like ties into what you were saying earlier about like outside pressures, right? Like from family and everything. It's like what you're saying is like if you know your own truth and what is valuable to you, then it doesn't really matter what anyone else expects from you, because if you're meeting your own expectations, then you should feel good about that, right? As opposed to feeling like, oh, it's not enough. Like, yeah, with what you said too. But anyways,
No, and I think that artists have to